Hello again. I'm Tripp Rogers. He's the Hall of Famer Mike Sheck, and we are the Fantasy Sultans back again for another year. The 2025 fantasy football season is upon us. Hard to believe it's August, Mike. Last
Oh
time we
yeah.
talked, last time we talked was April, and well, that seems like another lifetime ago. By the
Yep.
way, we're having one of those lovely thunderstorms down in Savannah, where I am right now. And I have a guest here, Hope, who is scared to death of thunderstorms. But then again, if you own a dog, you know what I'm talking about. So, Hall of Famer, how was your Hall of Fame summer?
Well, we had an interesting one. You and I were on the golf course a bit. We took the
That's
links at the
right.
ShopRite LPGA Classic, and that was a fun time back in
Good
June.
stuff.
We had
Good
fun.
stuff. Good
I'll be
stuff.
going to Aruba next week.
Nice.
I'll be going to Aruba, Jamaica. No, I'm only going to Aruba though, but
And
yeah, that'll
the
be a
thing
good
is, you're
time.
singing better than Mike Love. So there you go. Oh, but of course the main topic of discussion, obviously,
Yeah,
fantasy football. I mean,
right.
we are just about ready to start, and we've said this a lot of times. Fantasy season is never over because
No.
we're always you and I are talking every couple of weeks, and
Hmm.
every time you turn around, there's some news. And the funny part of this is we have not we have not spoken, we've not done a podcast for quite a while. And I think the amazing thing is that so much has happened, and it started with the draft.
Yeah.
And I think there's a story that from that draft that is going to be something we're going to be watching the preseason. So it's kind of one of those overarching things. So let's go back. The draft, I don't think there were really any surprises with the first picks.
Yeah.
Again, the big surprise was the fall.
Yes.
I think that was the surprise. Again, I when we did our draft preview, Mike, I don't think there were any, I don't think we really disagreed. But again, one of the things I said was I was not, I didn't want the Giants to take quarterback early. Very happy with Jackson Dart. And I had and I've been on his bandwagon since November.
Right.
And our Sunday with the Sultans show, I said, he's the guy. I like him. And the Giants got him in the first round. I don't think they overpaid. And now, granted, there are people who questioned whether this was the right move, but I will be fine with the Giants. I don't necessarily want them to play him this year, but if they do play him,
Yeah.
I- you know, I want it to make some sense. And I go back to the last time the Giants, well, I shouldn't say last time, but the last great quarterback for the New York Giants, that sounds good. Eli
Yeah.
Manning, you'll remember, was taken number one overall. The Giants sat him through most of the first season and put him in the lineup. He started the last 6 games of that first rookie season for him in 2004, and the rest is history. I'd be okay with that this year, but I just don't know about the Giants' schedule. And even though you have a Russell Wilson, and even though you have a Jameis Winston, the Giants' schedule just is brutal. And I really, really question whether or not. I mean, I don't see 2 wins coming in the first 2 months of the season.
Mm.
If they get 2 wins, it's going to be a miracle because look, you're starting off with Washington, Dallas on the road, home for the Chiefs Sunday night, the Chargers, who are, I mean, they're loaded for bear. They're one of the teams I think to watch in the AFC. You get the New Orleans Saints, and then 2 of the next 3 games are against the defending Super Bowl champions. And you really think the Giants are going to win those games? Really? So I don't see 2 wins coming out of that first 2 months of the season. If they get 2 wins, that's a miracle. And the
I think
schedule's just not going to get any better.
I think it's very fitting you have hope in the room.
I think it's very fitting. And in fact, we were together in June, and I told you I did this.
Yeah,
I bet the under on Giants wins
right,
this year, 5.5.
right, right.
And I am Mr. Bleeds Blue. I have no hope for this season, none whatsoever. But again, in terms of, and the other thing about we talk about the Giants draft, I love Cam Scattaboo. I love
Yep.
that pick. That was a great pick. And now he's got a hamstring injury. So I'm like, oh, great. There you go. Right down the tubes. What struck you, or what were some of the lasting things about the draft aside from Shador Sanders' slide?
Well, I mean, I was surprised at Cleveland with the slide. I mean, we have to talk about the slide because he did go to the fifth pick by the Cleveland Browns. It went to day 3. We said he wasn't the best. He wasn't the best 2 quarterbacks on the board. Basically, we wouldn't be surprised if Shador fell to day 2. Well, that didn't happen. He fell to day 3. But they took Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shador. I think that's surprising. You take a look at the Browns roster, that's very surprising. I mean, they bring Joe Flacco back from free agency. They add Kenny Pickett. Now you have Dylan Gabriel and Shador, not to mention Deshaun Watson still on that roster. So now you've got 5 quarterbacks, and we don't believe Deshaun Watson is going to be in Cleveland for much longer. We can't think that his days are numbered. We even said that last season. His days in Cleveland are numbered just because of his situation, the injury, his performance, not happening. So, I mean, I was very interested that the Browns went the way they did with Shador, but and I don't know that Dion was, Shador's father, very happy about that because, he wants his son to go to a good team. And let's face it, right now, Cleveland is not a good team. So, that was the interesting part of it. But yeah, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, that was a big thing. What about Travis Hunter? Jacksonville made a play to move up. They swapped with Cleveland, and Cleveland got Mason Graham. That was the kind of the swap there. But for the most part, a lot of teams went defense or they tried to build up their offensive line. That was the draft. That was the story of the draft. And the Philadelphia Eagles, they saw some depth in the draft. They lost players in free agency on the defensive side. We were questioning what was going to happen with the Eagles. Well, they made some nice moves in the draft and a little bit in free agency. Still to be determined how they're going to be this season because, let's face it, they're going to have one of the toughest schedules in the league. Right, and rightfully so. They were the Super Bowl champions last year. So I think that's going to be interesting, but we can't really question Nick Sirianni anymore because he proved himself last year.
Listen, I mean, I think it's kind of ironic when we record the day we record this, we're recording this. Travis Kelce met with the media and basically said, okay, it's in the garbage, but
Yeah.
you have to think, and we said it, I think we said it in our draft special. You have to think this could be a defining loss for Kansas City. And I say this because they have been to the Super Bowl 5 of the last 7 years.
Yep.
I mean, they're a good team, but all good things got to come to an end. And that wasn't a loss. That was an embarrassment. See, when they lost to Tampa Bay, I don't think that was an embarrassment. I mean, that was just a case of a team being able to scheme against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
This was an embarrassment. And we're not talking about a team that just got the Super Bowl. This is the 2-time defending champs. And they came out and played so badly that it could be a defining moment. I mean, let's remember the Buffalo Bills went to 4 Super Bowls in a row, won 4 AFC titles in a row. Have they been back to the Super Bowl? Took them a while to get back there, and they have not been back there. They have not been back to the Super Bowl since those 4 straight losses. So same thing with the Chiefs. Um, I do want to, you're right. This was not a draft. This was not a deep draft.
No.
There were a couple of players in there, but it wasn't a deep draft. And Cam Ward, I find it interesting. He goes to Tennessee, and Will Levis is there, and you knew he was on his way out, and all of a sudden, oh, shoulder surgery, out for the season. Cam
Yep.
Ward's our starting quarterback. You didn't see that coming. I'm not, listen, I'm not saying there was anything nefarious, but I just kind of wonder about that. That seems awfully convenient. If you want to be a conspiracy theorist, second gun for JFK. There you go. I mean, I don't know, but it makes life. I mean, it makes life easier. I'm not saying it's going to be easy for the Titans, but it makes life easier because you're not going to, your quarterback's going to be. Um, so from that standpoint, and again, we don't really have preseason is when we're going to see how these guys are.
Right.
But I mean, again, based off the draft, like I said, the head scratcher, Cleveland Browns. And going back to what you talked about with Shador, I wonder if it got to a point where teams were like, we're not going to draft him because we don't want to deal with Dion. And you get to that point in the draft. And the other part of this is, and you and I said this to each other, I think Friday night of the draft, I said the Dallas Cowboys have passed on him.
Yeah.
How many times? And Dion is Jerry Jones' guy.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Jones' guy.
Yep.
And they passed on it. So what does that tell you about Shador? What does it say? And we're not talking about a Dallas Cowboy team that's got a lot of depth at quarterback. You got Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush. You don't think Shador could be the future of that franchise? I think it got to a point where the Browns said, okay, what the hell? Fifth round, let's take him. Why not? But I mean, it's going to take a heck of a lot for him to make the roster. We'll talk about that because again, that's something we've got to look at. The other thing we talk about in terms of fantasy, and hey, it's another year in which it's all about Aaron Rodgers. Once again, it's another year where we talk about Aaron Rodgers. And it was all about what he was going to do. I think Aaron wanted to go to Minnesota. I think he
Yeah.
really wanted to go to the Vikings.
Well, he had the Giants in mind too.
Well, I think he talked to the Giants courtesy. I don't think the Giants were ever serious about it, but I think he wanted to go to Minnesota. But it became apparent his only choice was going to be Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
and Pittsburgh's it.
Yep.
Now, is this a new Aaron Rodgers? Doubtful. But again, we're taping this on the 6th of August,
Yeah.
and on this day today, Aaron said he'd be willing to play in the first preseason game. He only
Mm-hmm.
played in a preseason game, the first preseason game for the Jets a couple years ago. Before that, he hadn't been in a preseason game since 2018. So I think Aaron wants to kind of get to work with the players. I don't think a lot of the first team players are going to play. So that would be the only thing I'd be curious about. And Aaron Rodgers is the oldest player in the league this year. Chew on that when you think about his fantasy prospects.
Well, let's think about the fantasy perspective here. I mean, I don't really think he's got the best cast of characters around him. DK Metcalf's going to be his go-to guy, but really at this point, that's it. I mean, the Steelers, they have one of the worst wide receiver units in football. They've been kicking the tires around about acquiring another pass catcher, but until they do, I don't really think you got to put a lot of stock into Rodgers. You got Pat Fryermuth, Jonnu Smith. They're reliable options, but is it really that exciting of an offense? Not really. I mean, you talk about what the Jets did last year, and they brought in Devontae Adams, and they brought in these cast of characters a little bit more for Rodgers. They didn't do that this year. So I don't know. I'm kind of, I was also wondering why the Steelers didn't draft a quarterback. Because we talked about Jackson Dart maybe going to Pittsburgh. Would have been a brilliant move for them to make a move on, go to Pittsburgh for the future. We know Aaron Rodgers, probably after this year, he's done.
Well,
So
Mason Rudolph is there, and I think Mason Rudolph is the guy they're thinking of.
yeah, I don't know though. I mean, we've seen Mason Rudolph. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen much prospect from him as I mean, it could turn out to their favor, but I would have thought they would have went for a quarterback in the draft.
Well, the other part of this is, and we're talking early preseason, you do not know what the cuts are going to be. I
No.
mean, listen, the NFL is a business, and when you try to get your 53-man roster, there are times that there are some cuts made. And that's the thing. Veteran players sometimes get cut or just simply because they don't want to put them on the roster week one. So you're going to see some cuts. And again, you may see some trades because they may say, okay, we need a quarterback. Okay, yeah, we'll help you out with a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick. And that's what they'll do. We just don't know that. I think that fantasy, as we set up, I mean, here we go. It's 2025. Preseason games start this weekend. And as always, we start with our fantasy top 12. You're the Hall of Famer. You go first.
Well, it's not changing for me very much. I mean, I'm looking at Cincinnati wide receiver Jamar Chase. He's my number one, scored 86 more PPR points than any other wide receiver in the league. I think Joe Burrow has the best year of his past three, and I think that's going to help Chase's opportunities there. Number two, running back Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles. I still have him at number two. Notice that he's been dropping in some of the drafts. A lot of people worried about his 482 touches that he had last season. Is that going to wear him down? I mean, you could look at him being the number one off the board overall, but you know what? I look at, like I said at the beginning of, our last show when we did the draft special, I think this is the year of the wide receiver, and Jamar Chase brings that opportunity. Also bringing that opportunity would be CeeDee Lamb. He's my number three in Dallas. As long as Dak's healthy, I think this is going to help CeeDee Lamb. I mean, he was pretty good last year, even when Dak had the injury. But, overall, I think, yeah, he's got to be number three. All right, let's go to number four, Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. Now, a lot of owners shied away from Jefferson last year because they did not believe in Sam Darnold. They thought he was going to drag down the output. That was not the case, of course. 103 receptions, 10 touchdowns.
Through 17 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I'm sorry, I got to bring that up. Those last two, clunkers. Clunkers, baby.
He was a wide receiver, though, that got it done last year, and I think it's going to be no different this year. Now, there's questions about his hamstring. He did have a hamstring injury. It's something to monitor. There's also questions about J.J. McCarthy, but at the same time, again, you take a look at what Kevin O'Connell did with that team last year, and I think, if he can bring the best out of Sam Darnold, I think he could do so for J.J. McCarthy. So I'm not too worried about Jefferson. What I'm a little bit more worried at this point is the hamstring injury, and that's something that we're going to have to monitor. Let's go to number five. That's running back Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. Over 1,800 yards from scrimmage, 15 touchdowns in 2024. Atlanta finished 10th in rushing, 9th in rushing touchdowns. They now go into a full season with Michael Penix behind center. Tyler Algier will be the back to complement that offense, but Robinson is the workhorse. So again, and a lot of people are saying he should go ahead of Saquon Barkley. So, it's very debatable as where we could put this top five. Bijan could slide up to number two. We can bring Saquon down. At this point, I still have Bijan at five. All right, I'm going to go with the Detroit running back Jahmyr Gibbs. He's number six. and an electrifying player in that Lions offense, rolling up 1,900 yards from scrimmage, a career high 20 touchdowns. Number one running back in PPR points last season. Only one game last season where he failed to not score double-digit points. So again, he's a guy that you want. I don't really care if he's sharing the backfield, not really sharing the backfield with David Montgomery, but they do split carries at times. I'm still not worried about it. All right, wide receiver, Puka Nacua, number 7. Now the Rams, well, he missed 5 games last season, but when he was healthy, he averaged 7 catches, 90 yards per game. They've also added Devontae Adams to that offense, so that should be interesting. But not going to fade Puka Nacua. He established himself as one of the best receivers in the game, and why not put him in that spot at number 7? Let's go with Christian McCaffrey from the 49ers. Now, you might disagree with me on this one, Tripp, how high he is off the board. Back in February, we were debating if he was going to be a second, maybe even a third round pick. And now he's going up the board because the 49ers are saying he's healthy, he's ready to go, he looks good. I am a firm believer in McCaffrey, so I am going to keep him at number 8. Yeah, he's a risk reward type of player, but when he's healthy, we know it. We've seen it. Even that season they went to the Super Bowl, he put up the numbers. So he is there. Let's go with number 9. Malik Neighbors of the New York Giants. Now, again, talk about the New York Giants. They've upgraded with Russell Wilson at quarterback. They also have Jameis Winston. But I look at that as an upgrade for the Giants. Last year, you had Daniel Jones. He was injured. You had the revolving door at quarterback for the Giants. So this is an upgrade for him. And Malik Neighbors put up big numbers last season. So we would have to expect the same going into 2025. Number 10, Baltimore running back Derrick Henry. Just one game last season with single-digit PPRs. I think he's one of the safest options. Tremendous upside. You're going to get value if he falls anywhere outside of the top 10. So, if he does not land in the first round, you're getting a value pick out of Derrick Henry. I don't care what you say. But again, I'm going to put him at number 10. Now, number 11, wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit. Over 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns last season. Detroit's offense rolling until they ran into the buzzsaw of the Washington Redskins. Well, I should say Washington Commanders, but they ran into that buzzsaw last season. Kind of looked like they ran into a buzzsaw last week in the Hall of Fame game. A lot of people were like, oh, what's going on with Detroit? But it is a preseason game. And much of their defense did not play, and their offense, we didn't see much of that, which is kind of expected. So everybody a little bit worried about the Detroit Lions, but I don't think so. And number 12, and going to round that out with Ashton Jeanty of Las Vegas. Now, he is being viewed here as one of the most complete running back prospects since Saquon Barkley. The Boise State alum. He's an elite rusher, and he brings a lot of speed, vision, and strong hands to the football field. And I'll tell you what, he's one of the most hyped players early on in the draft. The downside is, I think the price that you're going to have to pay for a player without any experience. A lot of people believe in him. A lot of people also like Quinion Johnson for I'm not Quinion Johnson. I'm sorry, Amari Hampton. For the Chargers. They're kind of comparing those two together.
Yes.
Jeanty is a first-round pick. Mari Hampton right now is a third-round pick. So a lot of people are saying, well, you're putting a lot of value into that. We'll see what happens. But Ashton Jeanty, I definitely think, is going to pay off big dividends. Let's not forget, Pete Carroll's now a Raider, and so is Chip Kelly calling the offensive plays. So I would have to think that running game. And Geno Smith is over there.
I was just going to say, Geno, it's funny because Geno was the one thing I thought, or the one, part of this that I thought would help Jeanty. And I agree with your pick. He is, but again, rookies, you sometimes overvalue rookies. And listen, let's look at this list. Bijan Robinson, last year was the first year really Bijan paid off. How many people grabbed him in the first round 2 years ago and were severely disappointed? Yeah. All right. Top 12. I'm going to take a somewhat of a contrarian approach. Now, yes, you're right. This is the year of the wide receiver, but running backs are still a wanted commodity. And I
Hmm.
think running backs are, I think, is a way to go. I'm going to disagree with Bijan Robinson. I'm going to disagree with Saquon Barkley at number one. I'm going to go with Jameer Gibbs. Listen,
Wow. Okay.
he was awesome last year. I think he would be a solid number one pick. I think he could be a game changer. And I'll put him number one on my list. Number two, Jamar Chase. And one of the reasons why I'm also going to go with Jamar Chase is because I think Cincinnati, that offense is ready to roll. I think I think Joe Burrow is going to have a great year. But I talked to one of my coworkers is a huge Cincinnati fan, and he made the comment, and he's right. That first game against Cleveland, they don't win that game. I mean, Cincinnati is going to be like, you got to be kidding me. Because here we go again. They always start slow, and that's a game they should win. They should beat Cleveland. Jamar Chase at number two, I think he's solid. I think he is solid. Number two pick, definitely. Again, you can make the case for number one, and I'm not going to disagree with your pick, but I have him at number two. At number three, I'm going to put Saquon Barkley there. And I say that because he's with the Eagles. The Eagles have a lot of weapons. They've got Jalen Hurts at quarterback. And they just throttled the Kansas City Chiefs and beat them. They throttled them. Now, I know it
Yeah.
was last year, but Saquon, I said this last year. I'm not a hater. I'm not a Giants hater because he went with Philadelphia. Saquon has been a great player, and he got a lot of accolades that he deserved. I think Saquon could help your fantasy team this year. I would go with him at number three. If I have a number three pick, I might take him. I think you have a number three pick in our Sultans draft, if I'm not mistaken. But anyhow, I digress a little bit. But I'll go Saquon number three. Number four, uh, see, I'm not liking the vibes in Dallas. And I think
Mm.
this Micah Parsons thing is, I mean, last year it was CeeDee Lamb, and now this Parsons thing. I mean, it's just it's the same. Every year it's the same thing. And Dak Prescott is your quarterback. I mean, not bad, but I wouldn't build my team. And CeeDee Lamb, great player. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not liking the vibes with CD. Um, and I say that because just where I am on this list. Like I said, I'll take the contrarian view. I'll go with McCaffrey. Again, running backs I think are at a premium. I think McCaffrey's ready to go, and I think the
Yeah.
San Francisco team is going to need him to go because they've traded away one of their stud wide receivers. They're going to need McCaffrey to be good. Brock Purdy is back, and he's got a new contract. And it's time to put up or shut up with Brock Purdy. George Kittle on at tight end is great. I think the 49ers team will do well this year. I didn't like them last year. I think if you look at McCaffrey, he has a good year, he has a bad year. So I'm going to go with McCaffrey at I think it was number four, correct? Yes, I am. Number four. Number five, I'll go CeeDee Lamb. Again, he's got such talent. He is so good. And he, as a fantasy player, he's, he's very good. But again, I'm favoring running backs this year. Justin Jefferson, number six. Again, he's a great wide receiver. The hammy thing bothers me, and I wonder if he could take a tumble. That's why I'm dropping him down on my list here. Um, da, 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 da. Puka Nacua, again, I think he's good. He's at number seven. Definitely. Excuse me. Number six would be Bijan Robinson. Number seven would be Puka Nacua. I would go those numbers. Skip the spot. No, I was right. No, it was number seven. Sorry, I'm working off of notes here. I'm trying to look real quick. I know I'm not the Hall of Famer. I don't have it. So seven, eight would be Puka Nacua. Nine, I'm gonna go Devon Achane. We've
Mm.
forgotten about him, and people have forgotten about him. He's still in Miami. They still got the mad scientist on the sideline, Mike McDaniel. They still got Tua, and that's why they'd be concerned. But he's been a solid fantasy player, so I will put him next on the list. I do believe I skipped Mr. Neighbors for the Giants. Yeah, I'll put him here. He's talented. He did so well last year. Another guy who we overlooked, and I'll throw him in as a wide receiver right now because I think they're headed for a nice revival this year. Last year was a lost season. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver for Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the quarterbacks I'm looking at, and again, if I don't go early quarterback, I'm looking late. I definitely think Trevor Lawrence is somebody who's set to have a good season with Thomas and Tank Bigsby and Trevor Etienne. Travis Etienne. I'm sorry, Trevor. No, Trevor's not with them. Travis Etienne. I think Jacksonville could be a decent offense this year, and I think that they will be good. So I'm gonna throw him in there. And then I'm gonna go with you on the Ashton Genty bandwagon. I think he's good, and again, I think that Las Vegas will probably be better than people are expecting, but I think it's because, and we haven't even talked about Brock Bowers, who was
Yeah,
a
that's
monster,
interesting.
who was a monster last year.
I think originally you put him at number 12, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken,
you're
in our
right. I did. You're
fantasy
right. You're
draft.
right. I did. Yes, I did
So
put
would you
Brock
put
number
him,
12.
or would you slide him just outside of the top 12 then? Brock Bowers?
Yeah, no, I would. And I say this because when we did our top 12, and didn't we do we did it before the draft.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was part of it because if you look at McCaffrey, we did not have in the top 12. I know we didn't.
No.
And so there's a change, and you have Ashton Genty who's in there. But Brock Bowers, I think he's going to be again one of the teams I think I'm looking forward to because I was thinking about this, and I guess I could lead into this before we talk about preseason. But I was sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, quarterbacks. What am I thinking about this year? And I'm sitting there and I'm going, well, I'd love to say Josh Allen. It's coming off MVP year, but I don't know. Is Josh Allen going to have another great year? How many can you string together? And if you use that theory, Lamar Jackson, how many years is Lamar Jackson going to put together? I mean, he runs an awful lot. Injury has not happened. So you
Yeah.
kind of wonder about that. Jaden Daniels in year two, probably going to take a step back. I think people are overhyping him. You look at CJ Stroud last year, took a step back in year two. Year three, I think he's good. Joe Burrow, I think, is going to have a monster year this year. Monster year. And the other quarterback who I think will take a step up, and I've said it already, Geno Smith. I think Geno's going to be pretty good. Also, again, let's look at Justin Herbert out in at Chargers because I think the second year this Charger team under Harbaugh is going to be awesome, and this team is going to be built like he builds team, and they're going to grind it out. And I don't think Herbert's going to have to win games. He is going to be that extra piece, and that could be the difference. Take him from being a good quarterback to a great quarterback. So that having been said, like I said, I was trying to think of quarterbacks because I was thinking about that. Because listen, you build a fantasy team, you build a quarterback. Preseason, Mike. Obviously, the meat of the preseason starts this weekend. What are you looking for in preseason? I mean, I think we kind of sold it ahead of time. This Cleveland Browns thing is just, I mean, that's going to be the storyline the entire preseason. Injuries obviously will be a storyline too. We can't predict that though.
Yeah, we can't predict it, but two players that I kind of am looking at is two former New York quarterbacks. First, Sam Darnold, who's now in Seattle. I mean, Darnold had an amazing year in Minnesota last year. The team goes 14-3. Darnold throws for over 4,000 yards. a 35 scores, and a quarterback QB finish, QB 7. But
What?
Minnesota. But yeah, I know we know how they finish. We know how they finished in the playoffs. But he
What?
goes to Seattle
Yeah.
and goes cha-ching because he's broken in, $100 million over 3 years. So, and also interesting is the Seahawks drafting Jalen Milroe, who we would think at some point is going to be the apparent heir for Sam Darnold. So, that's an interesting thing to watch in the
But
preseason. I
I
want to
think
see
when
how
we
Sam
talked,
Darnold does in the
but
preseason.
when we talked about Milroe and when we talked about him in the draft special, I think one of the things we both said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I
Yeah.
don't think Milroe is ready.
No.
Milroe is a project. Milroe is a project. He's a year or two away. So the fact that Seattle took him, I agree with you. And I cut you off. You have one other quarterback, one other
Yeah,
former New
I
York
want to talk
quarterback.
about the other New York quarterback, Daniel Jones, who's now in Indianapolis. I mean, this is going to be an interesting preseason battle going on between
Okay.
Anthony Richardson
Yeah.
and Daniel Jones. Who are the Colts going to roll with? Are they going to want to be rolled with Anthony Richardson, who, you know, literally took himself out of a game because he was tired last year? Or do they want Daniel Jones, who maybe is looking for that fresh start and looking to impress a different team? So, I mean, we know how it was with the Giants. It wasn't great. He didn't have an offensive line either. That was part of the problem too. We'll have to see what happens, but I'm going to be watching the quarterback battle in Indianapolis to see. Again, Daniel Jones is not going to be a quarterback that you're going to draft early. He's going to be a quarterback you're going to draft late. He might even, in fact, be a quarterback you take as a backup quarterback, but he could be that quarterback, if he is the starting quarterback, that gets you the points when you need them when your starter isn't playing. So, I mean, I would watch Daniel Jones' situation. I would watch the deal in Seattle. I want to see how Sam Darnold does. He's not, again, these guys are not going to pull. Well, Jones is going to play more than, obviously, Jones is going to play more than Darnold is because of the quarterback battle that's going on in Indianapolis. But, Darnold, he won't see as much time, but I still want to see how Darnold looks in a Seattle uniform.
Well, the other thing about Seattle, I'll throw this in there. Mike McDonald is his second year as coach, so
Yeah.
he's got his quarterback. He was stuck with Geno last year. I don't think he liked Geno. He moved off of him, and he now has his quarterback. So he's got a guy that he's going to build around. So he's going to make or break that team. That's there. That's A on that. The Daniel Jones thing in Indianapolis. This is going to be a make or break year for Shane Steichen as coach.
Yeah.
And the other part of the Daniel Jones thing, and I like your theory, and that's a good one because Anthony Richardson is the injury bug. Remember his rookie year, he went out, he was out for the season. Last year, he had injuries. Flacco was not great last year by any stretch of the imagination. So again, Daniel Jones could get you some traction, and he could be a guy you stash on your roster and you spot start him. And again, that bye week, maybe he's the guy that could save you and save your bacon that week. But again, we talked about it. I think really the interesting battle to watch this year is going to be that Cleveland quarterback battle. Because
Mhm.
right now you've got Kenny Pickett, who, and again, I've got friends out in Cleveland. By the way, I visited the Hall of Fame this summer. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The bus trip, I hadn't been there in 35 years, so it was really nice to see it. And the Hall of Fame. I mean, the bus room was unreal. Of course, Jerry Jones front and center with his class. I'm like, geez, you can't put him off the side. No, right there, dead center. And of course, had to say hi to OJ too. Uh, but anyhow, um, but talking to friends in Cleveland, um, Kenny Pinkett is the guy they traded for. So obviously they want him to start. They see something in Pinkett. He played for Pittsburgh. He was the backup for Philly this year, won a Super Bowl ring. Then he got traded to Cleveland. He's the guy they want to start. Flacco is old reliable. They signed him more for insurance, I think. But they have to think to the future. Joe Flacco's not, he doesn't have too much tread left on the tire. Again, this could be his last year. So you drafted Dylan Gabriel, and Dylan Gabriel's got an injury. So he's hobbled, and you have Shador Sanders. And lo and behold, first preseason game, Shador Sanders may start. So already you're going to start seeing that and you're going to hear about that. The question, though, becomes the Browns aren't going to carry four quarterbacks. No way. They are not carrying four quarterbacks. I don't even think they carry three quarterbacks on the roster. I mean, they could, but I think the best that Shador Sanders could do would be practice squad. Or the Browns make a deal and trade him to somebody who needs a quarterback who needs a piece. Because
Yeah.
remember, in order to get on the practice squad, he has to be waived. So somebody may grab him, just say okay. But if you grab him on waivers, if he gets on the practice squad and you want him, you have to sign him onto your active roster. Is Shador Sanders ready to play in the NFL? I don't think so. So it's going to be interesting to see what does indeed happen with Shador Sanders. Um, Again, I think that's the big storyline this preseason. And, injuries are going to be a key, and we've seen some injuries already. And we talk about some of the players who have been injured. Justin Jefferson has got a hammy injury. Got to look at that. We mentioned Cam Scatterbo for the Giants. I don't know. Listen, Tyrone Tracy's the running back in New York, but Cam Scatterbo, I love that pickup. I think he could be awesome. But now he's got a bum hamstring, so I'm a little worried about that. I'm concerned. But that's what we're looking for. Okay, so Mike's going to be in Aruba next week. We're not going to do a remote from Aruba. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and of course, at that point, we'll be just about ready to wrap up the preseason, and we'll set you up. We'll give you some strategy. I use the Bugs Bunny word, strategy. And we'll use some strategy to prepare you for the season. I mean, it's hard to believe September is just around the corner. And we didn't talk about this, but it is something that is going to affect fantasy football. The fact that NFL media has made a deal with ESPN.
Yes.
So, and the big thing on that is that NFL fantasy football will now go under ESPN, and they're going to merge those two things. So if you love NFL fantasy football, NFL.com fantasy football, you better get used to ESPN because that's where you're going. Because that's the part of that deal that I think we need to mention, because again, it's going to affect fantasy players because NFL.com has different rules that they use and that kind of thing. So and again, setting up your leagues, it's time. We'll talk a little bit about the different strategies and stuff like that as we go ahead. I expect you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, wouldn't it, we were talking about the NFL draft, wouldn't it be interesting? And now I know that a lot of drafts are online drafts now and not in person, but how fun would it be to have the NFL draft experience carry over to fantasy? And what I'm talking about here is how about trades in the fantasy draft? Like anybody want to open up a trade? Like, okay, you got the first pick. All right, I got the whatever pick I got in the first round. Okay, I'm moving up to the first pick, but I'm giving up a pick later on, and it sort of balances it out. I mean, I think that makes it a little bit exciting.
Yeah, but the problem is the problem with that is okay. Um, and the biggest issue is again, you have to balance it out. And
Right.
how do you balance out those trades? I mean, I think um in some ways I think it's easier to trade when you have somebody on a team
Right.
because you can sit there and go, okay, hey Mike, I want such and such. I'll give you such and such for him. Usually it's 2 for 1 or something like that, but you can balance it out that way. You know. And that's for the fun. But and I think we've talked about it. I'm not a huge trade fan. I mean, if it was a dynasty league, So you would have the same roster. The draft is a little different with a dynasty league because you have certain players that you keep, and then trades would be more valuable or more interesting. But every year, it's just you got a group of players to
Yeah.
pick.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's a redraft. That's what that's a redraft like. If you have something you would like to ask us about, you can send us email, fantasysultans@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Again, the game plan is Mike's going to go to Aruba. I expect you to come back with a tan.
Okay.
I expect a tan.
All right.
And I expect a good round to go. Are you going to bring the clubs or not?
Nah, it's gonna be rough now.
Okay. All right. Well, I expect the sunburn. Yeah, I expect the
All
sunburn.
right. Okay.
I expect the sunburn, and I do not want videos of you dancing to a marimba band doing Kokomo. Okay, I'm just saying that. Okay, love you, buddy, but no, not that.
No.
We will be back in a couple of weeks. Again, you can find us on YouTube and on Spotify. We're excited, pleased as punch to be back with you. He's the Hall of Famer Mike Scheck. I'm Tripp Rogers. We are the Fantasy Sultans.
And you are not.